This is about defending democracy. This is no longer Democrats versus Republicans. What do you want your kids to believe in? There must be give and take.
This is White Flag with Joe Walsh.
Hey, former Congressman Joe Walsh with you. This is White Flag with Joe Walsh. I'm excited for this conversation because Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, I still think is a great format. I know a lot of people think it sucks. I don't. I think it's a great platform, but you get a lot of love and a lot of hate and a lot of reaction. I do, at least, from a lot of people. Matt McGahey, Matt from Central Texas, has become a follower on Twitter who I find really interesting because I'm having a hard time pegging him anywhere, which is a good thing. He gives me shit in a few areas, and I want to get into some of those areas because I think they're interesting. Matt, brother from Central Texas, welcome.
Thank you, Joe. Pleasure to be on your show. It's an honor, really is.
Well, thank you, man. I get a lot of shit from people. The shit I get from you is always smart and thought-provoking, and it's generally a question. And one of the questions that you constantly throw at me, which I love, is because I say Trump's a threat to our democracy. I think you disagree with that, but you are great in that, constantly asking me what I mean by that. Start there in our discussion. I think that about Trump. Do you? Give me your thought.
I think he is a very narcissistic person that is just going to be really hard to peg down. Do I think he is a threat to democracy? No, I honestly don't. If he's a threat, then everybody's a threat in government. You know, what I try to do when I do thought-provoking questions is tell me why. I mean, you know, if there's so many layers to the Constitution he would have to get over to even get to the point of being an authoritarian dictator, you know, that it's very hard for me to bridge where we're at and what you think he will become. I just don't. I'm hard time bridging that gap right there.
Well, let's delve into something you said there a minute ago. I found that interesting. I do think Trump's a unique threat. You said if he's a threat, then everybody's a threat. So, and you've been really good, Matt, in asking me to explain why I think Trump's a threat. Like if everyone else didn't do what Trump did, like I'll pick one example. Like he lost an election and refused to accept that loss. I think then he led an effort to try to overthrow the election, but like nobody else did that. So not accepting, like if you don't accept election results, to me, that's kind of what the whole democracy is based on. That's part of why I think he's such a threat. What's your thought on that?
I actually agree with that. You know, the peaceful transfer of power has always been the backbone of our institution, of our life, of our Constitution, of our nation. That was a dumb-ass move by him. And I agree with you 100% on that, but I'm not surprised he did that. I'm not No. I think we all knew that was coming. You know, leading up to the general election, it was like, you know, they're going to try to rig the election. They're going to try to take it away from you. I mean, just like, shut up. You know, I'm not surprised by that. I do agree with you on that. I just, like I said, I don't think he's a threat to democracy as far as where I think people, the idea of where you think he would go if he did get elected. Now, it's a stretch for him to get elected. It's not guaranteed. But and what I meant by everyone's a threat is anybody can try to take that position in the power. And power goes to everyone's head. And I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat, you're going to the era of what you, like your 7-minute thing this
Yeah.
morning. You said the era of the Republican Party of what was is not here anymore. And a lot of that has to do with, the culture, the politics, the social media, the misinformation, disinformation, whatever you want to call it. There's a lot out there that is, and it's dividing and solidifying different bases, especially the MAGA base. You got about 45 million people that are concrete, hardcore, will never leave him. And is that a cult following? I guess maybe but it's something not to be taken lightly.
Back up, Matt. Back up. On because you and I respect you for this. You do push me hard on. Come on, Joe. Is Trump really a fucking threat to democracy? And you say not accepting the election result and then doing what he did to lead to January 6th. Everybody knew he was going to do it. It was a dumbass thing to do. But to me, it goes way beyond that. To me, that's disqualifying. That is a unique that the fact that he tried to stay in power. He didn't succeed, but the fact that he tried, Matt, go ahead. To me, that's disqualifying. That's a unique threat. Go ahead.
Okay, so between January 6th, actually up until December 23rd is when the electors had to have their votes into Congress.
I think that's right.
He had the opportunity to sway electors between the election to then. He had 62 or 64 court cases that he threw up, something right there. And he had a right to do that. He had a right to legally challenge. Yeah. As far as him trying to overthrow the government, you're going to take probably anywhere from 100 to 150 bad actors on J6 that wanted to actually do that out of the tens of thousands that were there. I think he wanted to overturn the election through the courts, but as far as disrupt everything and what other people's intentions, I honestly don't believe that. I really don't.
You don't think, Matt, that's interesting. You don't think he wanted the process stopped on January 6th? He did not want that.
He wanted Mike Pence to stop certain. He wanted certifications through state legislatures like Georgia, Wisconsin, and I believe Arizona, so when it comes down to wanting to stop that process and send it back to the legislatures to verify, I can understand that because it's constitutionally, he had that right to try to do that constitutionally.
But do you agree, Matt, that Pence didn't have the constitutional power to do that?
Actually, he did.
Pence had the constitutional authority.
He could have, if there was a dispute in a state on votes or fully counted votes, verifiable votes, he could have said it back. Y'all figure this out. But I think Pence did the right thing at the time. I do believe he did the right thing by just go ahead and certifying.
Matt, do you think maybe you and I disagree on this. I think January 6th was uniquely horrific for this country. Do you think it was that big of a deal?
I think it was a really big deal, but I don't think the Trump supporters were fully responsible for it. I do believe some bear responsibility especially with the chief of the Capitol Police saying that, he was denied for 71 minutes backup. There's still a lot of questions on J6, a lot of questions that MAGA is never going to let go until it's litigated or shown. And even if it is shown, are they going to believe it? Probably not.
What were they there for? The Trump supporters that were there, what were they trying to do in your mind?
think they were there to express their frustration of politics, I believe you had spoken about or somebody had spoken about we're just coming out of COVID lockdowns.
Yeah.
People were mad. Black Lives Matter was going around tearing up cities and Antifa, but also white supremacists were too. They were bad actors on all sides on that. I'm not saying one or the other, but there was a lot of just unrest. And do I think J6 is a big deal? Yeah. I mean, you don't want to. Nobody should really be marching up the Capitol steps. But do I think it was all just J6 Trump supporters? No. I think there were government officials in those crowds that helped instigate it. I do believe that.
Oh, that's interesting, Matt. So you think, because I agree with you on this, that we should have been better prepared. The government and law enforcement should have, and that's a failure. And I wish the Jan 6 committee had focused more on that aspect as well. But you think that the government helped to possibly instigate some of what happened on Jan 6?
They haven't disputed it. And the FBI is declining to even say what agents were in the crowd. They did that and testified in front of Congress. I mean,
but you haven't seen. Have we seen any proof of that?
No. But there is the question still lingers until that's answered. It will never be resolved. And I could be totally wrong, Joe. My gut is there were government actors in there. That's what my gut tells me. It could be totally off base. I wasn't there.
Might they have been in there, Matt? And I'm wondering, might they have been in there undercover, kind of as part of a security thing, to
possibly
because they've gotten.
Oh yeah, I'll concede that. I'll concede that absolutely. But until that question's answered, it's going to be speculation, and I'm speculating right now. And so, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'll admit it. I mean, but what I'm thinking is that there might be some nefarious actors in there to help instigate it, but do I know that for sure? No. But am I a J6er absolutist that it was the right thing to do? No. I don't think it was the right thing to do. I think everybody should have just peacefully left after his speech instead of going to the Capitol. Now, that's on Trump too. Okay, march to the Capitol and have your voice heard. Now, that was dumb. Because I think he honestly knew it was going to get messy. Yeah. I do. And any of us that knows anybody that's gone to J6, they knew that it was probably going to get rowdy. And but nonetheless, crowd mentality, once it starts, it's hard to stop.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think there are now over 1,000 people who've been arrested. Yeah, not just for violence, but also for trying to, under oath, acknowledging that they tried to obstruct the government proceedings.
I think it's like 600 and something, around 680. I want to say it's 683. That keeps popping in my head. Were there to disrupt, but for the most part,
and stop the proceedings.
But as far as like overturning the government and the insurrection and taking over, no. I mean, that's hyperbolic to me.
Is Matt, that's a fair point. Sometimes I get hyperbolic. I try to make this point. They were there to overthrow the election result.
I don't know if they're overthrow that. I think they want to hear their voices heard, and they wanted a fair election, and they still don't think the elections were fair. And there's still a lot of questions out there if it is. You have Arizona, you have Georgia, all of Trump's lawsuits, the evidence was never presented because he was either dismissed lack of standing, or it was after J6 and it was moot after that. So maybe less than 5 actually heard some evidence out of the 60 something. Now, am I going to sit here and say that the evidence was concrete in those 60, or now 58 to 57? No, I don't know. Nobody knows what the evidence is, and that's why I think Trump wants the Georgia trial to go through. I think he wants to show that evidence. But
do you think the election was stolen? Okay. And clearly, if there were evidence, I mean overwhelming evidence, I trust our legal process enough to believe that that would have come out. Do you agree with that? No. Well, or sufficient evidence hasn't been presented. Or, yeah, I guess another way to say that, Matt, is at the time and since people with appropriate standing did not present compelling
Well, no,
evidence.
there were people that did. I mean, look at the young lady that's being prosecuted in Georgia that was sitting there and raised a flag saying, "Hello, these are not right." And now she's part of the 13 in Georgia, I believe. That
And that's the 13, that's what?
of the ones of the RICO of the
Oh, she's part
indictment.
of that.
Yeah, she's
18
part.
and 19,
They
yeah.
indicted her, and she was just a poll worker. And
Well,
so
and she'll have her day in court.
she'll have her day in court, and that's what. Yeah, I'm just saying the evidence hasn't been presented yet because it hasn't been litigated yet. So we can speculate all day long. Is there evidence out there? Might not be, and there might be. I don't know. I won't know until it litigates.
But
But,
the
I'm not.
central-
But I'm not
yeah.
going to sit here and say this was stolen absolutely because I don't know. But do I feel it was stolen? No. Not in our current system. No. But if there is evidence out there, it may come out, it may not. It may come out 10 years from now. Who knows? I don't know.
Well, and it's kind of like, Matt, what you're saying is like, and I always get this when it comes to Trump and all his indictments. And then, this week, a judge determined that he committed financial fraud for years. Well, okay, boom. And then people come back at me and say, what about Joe Biden and Hunter Biden? And I say, well, if Biden's ever indicted, or if there's evidence and Biden is charged with crimes, then I'll say the same thing.
Yeah, of course. And,
Right.
And with that charge in New York, honestly, for everyday Americans, nobody cares.
I agree with that, and I agree with that, Matt. Like, this won't change anything, but I guess I'd respond to it and disagree with me. People should care. If the Republican nominee for president committed financial fraud for years, that should matter. Do you think?
But my question back to you is
Yeah.
they knew he was overinflating his properties, and the banks gave him the loan anyways.
Well, that's a good point, Matt. And forget about the behavior of the banks and the insurance companies. But that's always been part of my thesis when it comes from Trump supporters to Trump supporters, because I was a Trump supporter. I think they know that he's a liar. I think they know he's a crook.
And they
like
pegged
that.
him for it. They knew what they could go after him, and they pegged him for it. And they could have done this years ago. And so this goes, but I do agree with you, this goes to his character. But character, in a sense, to people in the MAGA base, they don't care. They want something done. They want they feel their freedoms are being taken away. They feel, everyday table issues, inflation is out the roof. Student loan debt is about to take off again. Housing price, nobody can sell their house because nobody wants to pay 8.25% interest rate after having 3%. No, we're in a really, and overseas treasuries are being dumped by China and Japan. The dollar is in. I really want to see where the dollar goes a year from now because I'm a financial guru and I watch this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's about to get bad. And the Democrats are going to have a really, really, really tough time in the next 12 months justifying, a lot of financial turmoil, which is just in the pipeline, and we're already starting to see it. And but I'm gonna back up a little bit because I got off on a tangent on that. But to go to his character, but nobody cares about that.
So stop there, because Matt, I want everybody listening to us to hear what you just said, because I agree with that. They don't care. And the economy's bad, the inflation, all the rest, blah, 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 doesn't matter. They don't care if he's a crook. They want, he's their crook. My question to you, Matt, is that and I know you and I agree they don't care. Is it a good or a bad thing that they don't care?
That's for them to decide. It's not. That's on them.
Do you care? I know you're not a humongous Trump fan.
Do I care on? Yeah, I do. I think character's a lot. I think your word and honesty, integrity is a lot, and I value those traditions that come from our forefathers of having honor, having truth, having discipline, having the strength to look forward in a righteous manner, and doing the right thing. But we've gotten so polarized from the government failing the people for years and years and years. Trump was ultimately going to happen.
Oh, spot on. You're right. I had been saying the same thing for years. The system was so fucking broken. We needed a disruptor. Turns out the disruptor, in my view, is an evil, corrupt dude. But I understand why we wanted a disruptor. Matt, where I went sideways with Trump supporters was, even though I wanted disruption and I was a disruptor, I couldn't support an evil disruptor. They still could, because they wanted.
Well, they look as Trump as he was results, to them in their eyes, whether it was true or not. I mean, he's a masterful of telling people what they want to hear, but he's also regurgitating old information too, in my opinion. And so he keeps going back to the same narrative. If you listen, I mean, his rallies are the same. And there's no, and everybody's like, oh yeah, awesome. And I'm like, okay, well, really, what does that solve moving forward? Nothing. Everybody's living in the past of what was great, what was awesome. Best economic times in 2017, 2018, 2019, bottom out 2020, and then our lives have been crap ever since, is what a lot of people will look at. And, and when it comes down to it, when this next election, it's going to be economic. It's not going to be indictments. I mean, if these indictments have shown anyone anything, they were. I think the DA should have done one indictment, the strongest one, and left it at one. That would have been more palatable to a lot of people, and I think it would have been more. You wouldn't have as much support for him right now as all.
Preach, brother. I want people to listen to what you're saying, Matt, because I think you're right on that. I hear from Trump supporters that these 4 indictments, they're just piling on. This is just a pile on.
But they have. We don't know if he's guilty or not. He hasn't been litigated yet. So if you're going to put all your eggs in one basket on something like this, and everybody's like, well, he can still run if he even is in jail. The Constitution, yeah. But do you want that? And then if he does get elected, who's going to want to work for him? There's a lot of people that will just swallow the pill and go do it. But are they qualified? Do we want people in those positions making worldwide policy, foreign policy, monetary policy, domestic policy that are just like, okay, I've never heard of this guy. Who is this? Joe Schmo from the street that's willing to do it, because he wants to work for Trump. I mean, that's a scary prospect as well. If he does get elected, what is his cabinet going to look like? Are they going to be radicalized? And, because there is a radical component to his base, but there also is to the left. There's a radical base on both sides.
Stop there, because I want to get into that in a moment, because that's an important point. You give me shit a lot, respectfully, you do, because like you just said, the 24 election is going to be about economics, and I'm on this horse, Matt, I can't get off, where I think saving and defending our democracy is the issue of our times, and that's more important than how fucking much money you're making and how well you're doing economically. And I continue to pound this because I think Americans should care more about the state of their democracy than their bottom line. Do you disagree with that?
I actually do, because I don't. I don't see. I just can't bridge. I can't see that, and I'm trying to. I hear what you're saying, but it doesn't resonate with me that that is a reality that could happen.
Because you don't, and I'm going to speak for you, Matt. Like if I tell you that Trump has no respect for election results, he has no respect for the rule of law, he didn't give a shit about any of that, your response to me would be, okay, Joe, maybe that's true, but he can't do anything. Like, I think Trump is an authoritarian. You would say, fine, Joe, maybe, but he can't be an authoritarian. The system's too tight. He can't break our system. But I'm speaking for you.
Yeah, I believe that. I think the Constitution's so rock solid, he can't do it. He can't go into a dictator king. The forefathers put the Constitution together for a reason, to not have a king, an authoritarian, a dictator. That is why that is how it is written, how it's framed. And we have so many layers of government that would stop him before he even could get started. You know, I mean, his cabinet can invoke the 25th and he'd be out. I mean, there's a lot of different avenues that we could take to take him out if he goes that route. And I think the Constitution is our saving grace on, and when you say threat to democracy, that's hyperbolic to me. What is threatening? What can he take away? He can't. He can't do it.
So that's interesting, Matt. That, like, the fact that he'd try, to me, is a threat. Like the fact that he would try to overthrow an election, that's a...
Yeah, but 45 million people. 45 million people don't believe that, and more, and that grows. I mean,
don't believe what?
That he tried to overthrow.
Oh, I see.
It. Yeah, I mean, his base. I mean, his base, and with these indictments, especially if nothing pans out with them, it's going to grow. And that's why it was dumb to even bring all this stuff up. But it was, and the timing of everything too, as well. But as far as a threat to democracy, no, our Constitution stops that from happening. And, you know, I really believe in that. I believe in our Constitution.
Don't you think, Matt, it came close? Like in our lifetime, Jan 6th, I mean, imagine if Pence had said, okay, back to the States. Imagine what might have happened then.
But that's the way the Constitution's written.
No, but
that it is.
I'll fight you on that. When you read what Pence didn't have the power to do that. Pence's role is just ceremonial.
It is. It's just there to open the certifications. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, but as far as like, if there was a dispute in the states, the state legislatures could have said, okay, I mean, there's a lot of legal theories to this. There are constitutionalists saying that was justified on these alternate electors. You know, it's justified to send them there, but they don't have to be counted. You know, and there's other parts of the other side that's saying, no, it was never justified. That's not the Constitution. The legal theory hasn't really been tested on this. And now we're starting to see that. And, you know, and so we could speculate all day long. And, you know, if Pence didn't really have that authority, then why did Congress change his role to ceremonial right after the election? Why?
Well, they codified. They wanted to codify
yeah, I know,
that.
but
they wanted to codify that.
But it wasn't. But why did
So
they
this
have to?
would never
Why
happen
did they have to do that?
Well, they actually, technically, the constitutionalist I am, is they didn't have to. It's right there in the Constitution. That was just an extra layer that Congress felt like they had to do.
But I think also on legal theory, we'll see if it passes muster or not. I mean, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know, but you know, as far as how I understand the Constitution and read it, there's just too many things there that would stop anybody from trying to take over the government and a dictatorship. You would have to go through so many layers. I just don't see it. I
agree with you, Matt. It's difficult, but if you and I were having this conversation 15 years ago, I never would have envisioned what happened after the 2020 election.
I agree.
I wouldn't have envisioned a president who would have done that and gotten that far. So, and again, hit me over the head with hyperbole. Maybe this is hyperbole, but if he's reelected, I think he's going to surround himself with people who he'll know this time will do his bidding.
The yes
I
men.
think he has an enemies list. I think he will hire an attorney general to be his personal lawyer. I worry about.
Yeah, but how far can the attorney general go with that too? Because if you look, and if anything's brought up in the D.C. Circuit Court, that's a Democrat setup right there. You have a 90%. I mean, take this example. I mean, you have a Republican attorney general bringing suit against a Democrat or anything Democrat leaning in the D.C. court who's 90% Democratic. How much do you think you're really going to get an indictment if you do get the indictment and or a conviction on? Whereas Democrat attorney general, as we can see now, everything is being done through the D.C. court, and that conviction after conviction after conviction. Well, it's set up by design by that. And so I don't see an attorney general getting that far. But, I mean,
it's interesting, Matt. Those are really good points. And when I was in Congress, Eric Holder was Obama's attorney general, and I had a big problem with some of the things Holder did. And in fact, I voted to censor him. I was part of when Congress censored Holder. I've never seen an attorney general like what Bill Barr did. Bill Barr, to me, was 100 times worse than Holder. I mean, Bill Barr, and you and I probably disagree on this.
I don't like Bill Barr.
There was collusion in 2016. Russia tried to get Trump elected. The Mueller report showed that. And then Bill Barr personally put out the Mueller report and lied about what was in it, doing the bidding of the president. So I actually think an attorney general can have a lot of power.
They can, but as far as how far they can get, I
have faith in the. I guess what we're saying, Matt, you've got immense faith in the constitutional system that our founders set up to make sure an authoritarian would never be in that office.
I do.
Stop there. And I guess on this point, my friend from Central Texas, I want to believe in that system, but I really worry about it if he's reelected. Now, the second point, you said a couple minutes ago, which I found interesting, and it led me to a question I wanted to ask you, because I think you and I disagree with this. I think, and I come from the right, I think the right is much more dangerous than the left right now. You think there's a radical base on both sides. My generalization, Matt, is that the left, I really disagree with on policy. The right, I believe now, MAGA is like fully anti-democracy and just like untethered to the truth. So I think they're much more dangerous. But what's your thought on that, the right and the left?
I'm going to say what I said before. I think they're both extremes to the left and the right. I as more of an independent.
Is one more dangerous than the other, or about pretty much equal in your eyes?
I could go on a whole list of stuff that on both sides that are, I think, dangerous. But, that's for another time. But yeah. I do believe both are so polarized. Both are so emotionally invested that both are dangerous. And I really honestly think we need a third and fourth party. I think we need more parties. Because right now, for me, and you may feel the same way, I feel politically homeless. I don't have a candidate that I really, really want to get behind. I thought RFK, but he is no. I'm kind of like I backtrack a little bit on that one, but there's nobody, and but so what do you do? And
well, and I think this is where you and I fundamentally disagree, because you're right. You and I are both politically homeless. I've been saying now for a long time we need a third party, a fourth party. Our system's broken. I agree with you on all that. I think the difference between you and me is I see right now this guy is a unique threat and he's got to be stopped, which is why I voted for Biden in 20 and I'll vote for whoever the Democratic nominee is, because I think that's our job right now is to stop Trumpism. And if we can do that, then fucking reform it, give me more parties, do other stuff down the line. But you'd probably disagree with, because you wouldn't support
because
Biden.
if Trump, I don't think Trump will win, and this
He
next
could.
election. I really don't. But if he goes away, they're going to replace somebody worse than him, or just as bad.
Republicans will.
The MAGA base will, yeah.
So you think that's grown well beyond Trump?
Yes, much more. Trump is just a symptom to this, and they will find another one that you go in and do X, Y, and Z for us, or we're not voting for you. And it's going to be it's going to be absolutes. It's not going to be compromise anymore. It'll be more absolute, and and that's no way to really look at things. You got to compromise. But I think we're so past that now. Both sides are past that. Nobody wants to compromise. Nobody wants to, hey, we'll concede this, but if you concede this, nobody wants to do that. It's okay. You don't think my way? Pff, hit the road. I don't care. You're dead to me. That's where we're at.
So you think this Republican Party is on this MAGA road and it ain't getting off?
It's not getting off. To circle back what we said a while ago, the Republican of old is gone, and that ended with Bush because of Iraq and Afghanistan,
Which was a mistake.
Which is a huge mistake.
Yeah,
and based off a lie, it really was.
Yeah,
and so yeah, I mean that's where when you start with Tea Party in 2010, 2011, right? And as that alternative to the old school Republican, that wasn't getting anything done and doing the status quo, that morphed into MAGA, and then now it's a wrecking ball. And it's
Matt, that's such a smart thing to say, because I was Tea Party and I got elected with that wave, and it'll always make me sad because Tea Party did morph into MAGA.
But it was also willing to compromise. Though y'all were willing to compromise. Now look at what everybody's doing now. It's my way or the highway. Congress is a flipping mess right now. And you have congressional members that have no backbone, or they're threatening. Or they're do nothing. That is your three things. It's threatening, do nothing, or just cower over or stay quiet. And all this does is strengthen MAGA, because it's going to be, they're going to see see, nothing's getting done, and this can morph into something really dangerous. Do I think we're at that point yet? No.
God, yeah.
But I think it can morph into something dangerous if we don't be careful.
Yes, and maybe you disagree with this. Authoritarianism is now the purview of the right. Again, I think the left is just wrong on most public policy. But Matt, I've had too many conversations over the last 6 years with MAGA supporters who have told me, Joe, I don't give a damn if Trump's a dictator. He's given me the shit I want. I hear that over and over. I think MAGA is embracing authoritarianism. That's the biggest danger. That's a bigger danger to America than a stupid thing like forgiving everybody's student loan debt.
Do you don't think vote blue no matter who is kind of that same track that,
that's just that's politics. Vote blue, vote Dem, vote.
And it's politics for MAGA too.
No, but if you polled the average Democrat and asked the average Democrat, would you like to see Joe Biden have the powers of a king to get A, B, C, D, E accomplished? Most Democrats would say no. I think if you polled most MAGA and said, would you like to give Trump the powers of a king to do these four things? Most MAGA would say yeah. Oh boy, that's what they tell me, Matthew.
That's
You hear some of that, don't you?
Actually, no, I don't.
You don't?
Not my neck of the woods. It's hey, we want Trump in there to do what he needs to do to get everything straight and right. But as far as going to say king, authoritarian, dictator,
well, to do what he needs to do, but give him the power to do what he needs to do.
But you're making that leap of president to king, and that our Constitution does not allow.
You're right. Our Constitution does not allow. But I'm going to gather that you're also a historian, as I am. Both parties. Right now, if you brought our founders back, Matt, right now, and they saw the powers that a president in this country had, they'd be blown away.
Oh, yeah, I have
right?
100%.
Obama, Bush, go right down the line. All presidents have assumed way too much power.
It started with the Patriot guy.
And I generally agree with you on that, as I do. You're right. And it's part of the problem, Matt, is that Congress, I say this as a former congressman, they've ceded a lot of their power. I mean, our founders envisioned that the people's house, Congress, would be where most of the power was. Our founders never would have envisioned the imperial presidency, where presidents have so much power in both parties.
And I agree. And, I agree 100%. But, again, to make the leap that any president can go from that to authoritarian dictator king is a stretch for me. And
this is fascinating, Matt, because most of what you're saying is, and I respect this, it can't happen, Joe. None of this shit you talk about can happen because our system is too strong. And I hear that. The point I'm making that to me is scarier, I believe the MAGA base would like an authoritarian, whether they can accomplish that or not. But to me, that's scary because that's what they've told me. I'd be fine with an authoritarian. I think that's scary.
It's hard for me to say, I mean, if you've heard it, but I haven't.
Over and over.
Not again, over here in Texas, that's not what I'm hearing. And so
you don't hear that from Trump supporters.
No, I don't. But let me just it's surprising to me to hear that you're hearing more of that because I'm not hearing that. I'm hearing, that what people are really more upset about is, and this is where they don't have an understanding of economics, is like, Biden's making everything worse, Bidenomics, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, it really wasn't him. It's been accumulation of things for the last 15 years, of why we're at where we're at, and I'm just not hearing that. I really am not.
Hey, Matt, and I know you're not a Democrat. If you were advising Biden of the Democrats, how do they win in 24?
If I was advising Joe, I would say, keep pounding on the policies that you've done. Really put forth the infrastructure bill, what you've done, for like the state of Texas, they've received $35 billion. Remind Texans of what you got with that. As far as when you're looking at campaign promises versus what he actually done, it's about 50-50. And, he attempted on student debt. He could have done more on that, which I think he knew what he was doing on that. He wanted it to fail. And there's a lot of people that are really struggling with that stuff. When it comes down to economics, I mean, it's out of his hands, but, put forth policies people can get behind. Keep pushing those out. Don't engage with Trump bantering, and say, well, Joe Biden is you just say, okay, that's to be expected from him. That's how he talks,
I'm not going to ask you who you'd vote for because I don't care. But if I put a gun to your head and said, you can have a second Biden presidency, 4 years, or you can have 4 more years of Trump, what would you pick? Knowing what you know about both of them, what would you pick if you had to pick? And don't be a politician. Don't you dare.
No, I'm not being a politician. I'm thinking, honestly,
if you had to pick. To me, it's easy, but that you and I are different. So there's no right or wrong answer.
how about I write in Joe Walsh?
You're giving me a politician's answer.
No.
I
honestly, that scenario,
you couldn't. No, I know that. Like you
I
wouldn't vote
can't.
for either one.
I think they're both
Equally bad for America. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Well, here's my deal with Joe Biden is his ability to lead cognitively, really, and what's really going on behind the scenes with all that.
You worry about that.
I can't vote for either one of them, and a gun to my head.
Not who you'd vote. And Matt, you can take a pass. I'm not saying who you would vote for. I know you want neither one, but if you were thinking of for America, if America had to settle for one of these, another 4 years of Biden or a new 4 years with Trump, what would you have America settle for? Not what you'd want. And if you can't answer it, no big. I get it.
Honestly, can't answer it.
That's a good honest answer.
I understand your question, but I just can't answer it. I'm not there. I'm just not there.
Last question, my friend. And I know I say this a lot on Twitter, but I'm a dark Irishman, and I worry that the American experiment could be over. Are you bullish or bearish on America?
I'm still bullish. I'm not.
Why?
Because if you look at what's going on worldwide, America's still dominant. It's going to be dominant. We have our problems with, politics, but as far as the American dream and the system, the freedom, there's no other place like it. And so, you have China on the brink of collapse. You have Japan is not doing well. Russia is Russia. They're just dumb. You have European Union with their problems, Canada with its problems, Brazil, South Africa, BRICS. India is having issues, with leadership and all these factions of killing off, between Buddhists and Hindu and Muslim and Christianity. They're having their own little internal battle and stuff. Where in the world is there more stable? And then Australia, they get locked down, at the moment's notice. New Zealand, the same thing. So if you look at true freedom and you look at true dreams to come true and everything, America is still number one, and it will be number one for a long time.
This is, my good friend from Central Texas, a perfect place to close, because this is primarily the point of disagreement between us. And I think it's a good, healthy debate, and you and I'll continue it. You have, and I respect you for this, you still have immense respect in the system, in our system, in our Constitution, in our process. I worry that it's on the brink. I worry that it's bending, it's folding. And that's why I have such fear. And that's why I'm bearish on it, on the American experiment. But it makes sense, Matt, what you said. I would have guessed that you would have been bullish, because that's been the thread throughout what you've said the last 45 minutes. Like, I worry about Trump trying to end our democracy. You would say, oh, Joe, fucking relax. Nobody can end our democracy. I respect that. I respect that viewpoint, even if I disagree. Hey, you've been wonderful, brother. Everybody, Matt McGahey, Matt from Central Texas. Too often, Matt, I have people on my podcast who are like well-known people and thinkers and all of this. We need to talk to real, regular folk, Americans, a hell of a lot more. and Matt from Central Texas, that is you. And I really appreciate a lot of what you had to say.
Joe, I appreciate the opportunity. I really do. And when you first reached out to me, I'm like, I'm just some dude here in Central Texas. I mean, what does he want? It just can't be real. But I do appreciate the opportunity and also a voice too. And
Amen.
I'm a straight shooter. I'm not gonna BS you. What you see is what you get. And do I have all the answers? No. Do I believe in our what the forefathers envisioned for our company? Absolutely. And I think we're going to be okay. And we're going to hit our rough patches, but we'll be okay.
Well, for this country to get through this, it's going to be up to just some dude from Central Texas and a lot more people like you to help us get through this, because politicians are going to fuck things up.
Yeah, they will. But you know what? You did well when you were in there. My hat's off to you for what you've done too, and I respect you. And yeah, nobody's ever gonna agree with everything, but I appreciate it.
Do me one favor.
Yes, sir.
Keep giving me shit on Twitter.
Of course.
I know you will. I don't have to tell you to.
Yeah, I like the thought-provoking questions. That's for sure. So,
Matt from Central Texas, thank you, brother.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you for listening. Remember to listen, share, and follow White Flag with Joe Walsh on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and everywhere great podcasts are found. And be sure to leave a 5-star review. This has been White Flag with Joe Walsh.